Welcome back to Akhara Study. Today, we're diving into Chapter 3 of the West Bengal Board Class 8 English syllabus to look at a beautiful poem titled An April Day. Our guide for this journey is the American poet Henry Wadsworth Longfellow. He spent his life observing nature and turning those details into rhythmic, memorable lines. Before we read a single verse, think about the physical transition between seasons. How exactly does nature wake up and recover after the freezing, brutal grip of winter? Longfellow's poem captures that exact recovery. He shows us that this seasonal shift is a universal story of rebirth and finding new life after a long period of dormancy. Even as spring arrives, the earth holds on to the hostile chill of winter. Deep in the ground, the frost is stubborn, tight and cold. But as the April warmth finally penetrates the ground, we get what Longfellow calls the loosened mold. The hard, frozen winter dirt softens, breaks apart, and becomes fertile again. Sitting in that dirt is a tiny sapling, a young tree. Longfellow describes it as stricken by the winter's cold, meaning it was severely damaged, and drooping, bending downward, teetering on the edge of death. The sapling, however, survives. It draws its sustenance, the vital nutrition and water it needs to live, straight from that newly softened, thawed earth. The massive, towering beauty of a spring forest begins right here, in a gritty, unseen struggle for survival beneath the dirt. Once we leave that tiny sapling on the ground and stretch our view upward into the massive, sprawling canopy of the forest, the entire atmosphere changes. Winter is defined by dead silence, but in spring, the pleasant woods fill with noise. The forest becomes a lively, chaotic symphony. You hear what the poem calls a softly warbled song. To warble is to sing with rapidly changing, sweet notes, the distinct, unmistakable sound of a bird calling out to its flock. Longfellow also points out the sudden flashes of colored wings. Birds are darting quickly through the bright sunlight, cutting across the gaps in the trees. Longfellow relies on this sudden arrival of vibrant sound and fast movement to prove a simple point: nature's energy has fully returned to the woods. If we step back to look at the wider landscape, we find what the poet calls forest openings, or glades. These are the clear, sunny patches of grass right in the middle of the dense woods. These spaces aren't empty. They are teeming, absolutely packed and overflowing with plants, insects, and new life. The inviting, warm atmosphere in these sunlit patches stands in sharp contrast to the bitter, lonely frost of the winter months we just left behind. By the time the midday sun hits the forest floor, we see the absolute victory of spring. The plants and animals in these glades are no longer surviving the cold, they are thriving. As the day pushes on, the bright yellow sun finally dips behind the hills, and the intense midday heat starts to cool into evening. Longfellow notices a fascinating visual illusion here. He writes about the silver woods. As the fading twilight hits the trees, the green leaves take on a shimmering, metallic reflection in the low light. Meanwhile, the tall green slope blocks the setting sun, casting long, dark shadows deep down into the lower valleys, or the hollows of the hill. But higher up, on the upland, the elevated terrain above the valley, the landscape catches the very last, wide, glowing rays of the day. This sunset provides a peaceful, quiet resolution to the day's intense burst of life. It perfectly closes the natural cycle Longfellow has built over the course of the poem. Now that we've experienced the sights and sounds of the poem, let's put that understanding to work and tackle the textbook exercises. Let's look at the word nest section at the bottom of this page. Remember how the sapling survived? It needed sustenance, which the text defines right here as what is needed to live and stay healthy. Moving to Activity 1, Question 2 asks where the sapling draws its sustenance from. The answer is option C, the earth's loosened mold. Scrolling down to Activity 2, Sentence D starts, the bright sunset fills. We know it fills the silver woods with light. Finally, flip to the chart in Activity 4. We need to match who with did what. For row 3, the sapling, what did it do? According to the first stanza, it draws its sustenance and thrives. When you understand the emotional story of a poem, answering these questions becomes effortless. Keep reading, keep exploring, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Akhara Study for more lessons. See you in